Hi, I'm Emerson Floyd, and this is the Anatomy of a Tracing, Part 1. We're going to link what happens in a single cell to what ends up on an ECG. I'm going to start off by introducing the colors that you'll be seeing. Purple corresponds to positive charge. Purple is positive, they both start with a P. Red corresponds to negative charge. Red is negative, kind of rhymes. Yellow corresponds to anything that has a connection with the heart's intracellular wiring, the His-Purkinje system. Lightning bolts are usually yellow in cartoons. Calcium's green for no good reason. You won't be seeing much calcium to start off. When something pathologic is happening in the heart, I'll put a gray border around it too sometimes. So now let's take a look at a cell. This cell has a negative membrane potential, hence the red border, the minus on the inside, the plus sign on the outside. Heartbeat happens when the cell depolarizes, hence the positive on the inside, purple border, negative on the outside. It has to repolarize again before another heartbeat can happen. Here's a closer look at an action potential in a ventricular myocyte. Basically, the myocyte and its membrane starts off negative. An electrical signal makes the cell suddenly positive. The cell then contracts and then it becomes negative again. Look at the numbers in the bottom right corner of the cell to understand the terms depolarization and repolarization. The membrane is depolarized when it goes from negative 90 millivolts to 0 millivolts. That is, when the charge on both sides of the membrane is about the same. Now we've repolarized. You'll notice that sodium is positive and potassium is negative because wherever most of the sodium is tends to be positive, and wherever most of the potassium is tends to be negative. The heart contracts due to waves of cell-to-cell charge change, and that's also what ECG electrodes pick up on. Here's an animation of how charge change proceeds from the inside to the outside of the heart when the wiring, the His-Purkinje system, is working. It's virtually simultaneous, although it does go from endocardium to epicardium. This makes sense because the wiring is located in the endocardium. We call this wave of positive charge change depolarization. In a well-wired heart, this proceeds from the inside of the heart or endocardium to the outside of the heart or epicardium, like I noted earlier. This makes sense because the heart's wiring is located deep in the wall of the heart. In regards to the ECG waveform, what we see is an upward deflection because we're seeing a wave of negative charge moving away from the electrode. And unlike with depolarization, repolarization happens in a slower cell-to-cell manner. In a poorly wired heart without a working His-Purkinje system, charge change spreads slowly from cell to cell. The ECG waveform will still be in the same direction, but it will be wider than the previous one, as this process takes more time. In this same poorly wired heartbeat, the endocardial cells are the first to finish depolarizing rather than the epicardial cells. This causes repolarization to proceed from endocardium to epicardium, which causes an inverted T wave. So here's a simplified version of what happens in a well-wired heartbeat, that is, one with a normal conduction system. The depolarization vector has the yellow border because the wave of charge change is based on a connection to the heart's wiring. The repolarization lacks such a border because it isn't aided by the heart's wiring, a slower process that happens cell to cell. Since in a normally wired heart, the last cells to depolarize are the first to repolarize, the repolarization vector mirrors the depolarization vector. In a normal heartbeat, the heart's electrical wiring allows for ventricular depolarization to occur in a coordinated manner from endocardium to epicardium. The epicardial cells finish depolarizing first, so repolarization goes in the opposite direction, which accounts for the waveform that we see. Repolarization happens like repolarization in a poorly wired part of the heart. It all happens cell to cell. As a result, the repolarization doesn't mirror the depolarization vector, it mimics it. Because in a poorly wired heartbeat, the first cell to depolarize will also be the first cell to repolarize. The difference in the direction of the depolarization and repolarization tracings is called appropriate discordance. Left bundle branch and right bundle branch waveforms demonstrate this appropriate discordance, and we'll discuss them in our next video.